Hello, everybody. It's Monday, July 3rd. We're in a new month.
Yeah.
And today we're going to talk about something different for a new month. It's Live Chats with Maggie and Buddy. I'm Maggie.
And I'm Bunny.
Today we're going to talk about, well, quite fittingly, it's a new month. So we're going to talk about our paths does not define us. Our past, not our path. Well, that too.
That too.
But it's a new month. It's July. June no longer defines who we are.
Yep.
August doesn't define who we are. Today is July 3rd. July 3rd at this moment in time defines who I am, and that's it.
Yes. The present
Do we
moment.
think of it, that present moment being exactly that? You know, that at any given second in the day, we can redefine our day.
Mhm. I mean, we do talk. I've talked about this before. How sometimes, the sayings are, "Well, tomorrow's a new day. I can start again tomorrow." And I said, "Why wait till tomorrow? Why do you have to wait till tomorrow? Um, you know, if you mess something up, or if something didn't go exactly to plan, or you no longer like whatever it was that you had planned to do, you could change
Yep.
your mind, and you can change your mind at any moment. It doesn't have to." Um, I was gonna say ruin the entire day, but affect the entire day. That's more what I was trying to say. Doesn't have
Yep.
to affect or define the entire day. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And it's so key in everything, not just about that one day, but also when I think of my past does not define me, it's the past person of who I was.
Hmm.
Because all through this life, we are becoming who we are. And there may be phases of our life that we don't like,
Yeah.
that we decided, I want to be different than that.
Yeah.
And you dramatically change who you are. And that happened to me.
Yeah.
I was through life circumstances, I was at a point where I was a very angry person
Mm.
and I was depressed. And I decided I didn't like that person. I didn't want to be her.
Yeah.
So I needed to change it. And now it's funny because you've commented many times when I talk about old Maggie, because you didn't know old Maggie.
Yes.
And you'll say, I don't know that person.
Yeah.
And I'm happy you don't know that person.
Mhm.
Sometimes you see little bits of that person, but that's what we're talking about today. We get to decide who we're going to be at every phase of life, at every moment of life.
Mhm.
And if you don't like where you are somewhere, change it,
Yeah.
do something different.
And I mean, you talked about right now, you said big things that happen, monumental things that happen. I know me personally, yes, I've had those big moments, but it's also interesting to me how the little things that you change add up. So, how the small things, like the small change that you make, how even that after
Yeah.
you've been doing that for 5 years, that small change or what we would perceive as small, some insignificant thing, actually does change it. I often think of Dr. Joe Dispenza. I always try to say his name wrong. When he talks about if you want to change your perspective on things and you want to do things differently, you have to physically do something different to kind of kick your mind into more, I guess, sort of an awkward to kick it out of the routine. So we can
Yeah.
often get into that routine thing where, when people refer to people who are asleep, that's more what it is. It's just that you're on an autopilot. So you're kind of like just in this constant, like, wake up, you wake up the same time every day, you get out of bed on the same side of the bed, you brush your teeth the same way, you go to the bathroom, you make, breakfast, then you take the dog for a walk, you take the same route to work. All of those things are over and over and over again, and it becomes routine, and people really love routine. So the thing is, if you do a small change, and he talks about, just get out of the opposite side of the bed. So if you always get out of the right hand side of the bed, get out of the left hand side of the bed, and you will actually see how awkward that feels. even right now, we could do something that to our listeners and even our watchers, because on Spotify you can see the video and on Facebook and YouTube, is I cross my arms like this. So I have my right arm over top of my left arm. Just doing this, putting
Yes.
is so awkward. Feels so weird. But doing that actually changes in science, when we're talking scientifically, it changes the neurons in your brain. It
Yeah.
makes new pathways. And
Yep.
that's exactly how you, and that's a small little change. Like it feels even awkward to try to do that. I don't even know how to do that. It feels so awkward. It feels so weird. But if I
Yeah.
kept practicing that, it would change that little part of my brain. And it potentially could have like what they call the butterfly effect. It could change some thought pattern that I
Yep.
have that would always be happening. And that's how you can kind of change that idea for your past doesn't define you.
Yeah.
Because you can change every little bit. It's sort of
Yep.
like a computer program, so you just change
Yep.
it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's true. And it makes perfect sense to me because I also notice, and you and I have talked about this on other days, that just noticing that you do something has the power to change.
For sure.
And for me, one example is being angry in the car and saying hurtful things about another driver.
Mhm.
Just noticing that I had that habit. And it came to me quite, you know, honestly. My heritage, my parents,
Yeah.
my mother's mother, like they all, I noticed they would all do the same thing and
Mhm.
talk at people when they're driving and yell at people. But I didn't want to be that person when I
Right.
didn't, I wanted, when I was changing who I was. So for now, there's still times when I slip that into that, and I
Mhm.
could be driving and somebody may do something. It's like, "You stupid idiot."
Yeah.
And just noticing the words come out of my mouth. Oh, that's not who you want to be.
Right.
And it's kind of like, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that.
Yeah.
Just changing the
Yeah.
whole process and just noticing. Do I beat myself up when I make a mistake and do it? No,
Yeah.
I don't. I used to,
Yeah.
but no, because just noticing something that you want to do different. And that can be for anything, not even just something so trivial as a driving thing.
Mhm.
It could be something big, it could be something little, you
Yes.
know, whatever it is that you don't like that's in your life, noticing that you don't like it is a step.
Mhm.
Because I used to do that to cars without even noticing that I was doing it.
Right.
So just noticing that I was doing it was the first step to change. And, that's often the case, just noticing that something isn't who we want to be.
Yes.
And I think we've even talked about it in a live before. Just
Yes.
noticing that I behave in a way that is not who I want to be. I'm If I'm behaving in a not loving kind of way, and
Mhm.
I'm reminded that's not who you are, Maggie. That's not who you want to be.
Right.
I can just change that at
Mhm.
any given second. I can change it because noticing that you're not your past
Mhm.
is is a big step.
For sure. And notice being I think like even when they talk about, Dr. Phil and Tony Robbins and all of the, biggest names for change and how to make change in your life and how to how to do those sort of things in your life is that you will actually also have like times where you have to notice and recognize that you have a problem or that there is something that's the first step to changing anything is
Yeah.
by actually, because even in those moments like you say, when you do have those slips, when you do have those moments where you kind of slipped up or whatever, it's very often because you went back into that moment of like autopilot again for whatever reason. Or it could be like something else. Like I know for me, and I know we've talked about this before, if I'm hungry, if I'm tired, like if I didn't sleep well, even if I'm emotionally upset, this past week, I had to be a little bit
Yeah.
more gentle with myself, and had to also keep myself out of a couple of situations, because I knew that, if I put myself in these situations where I can get rubbed the wrong way, that it is possible that my old programming, or the things that are going to show up. And it is, a trigger response. I often will give gratitude to that coming up, thank that when it comes up, and say, thank you for showing me an opportunity for healing, a place where I can heal something that I didn't know, some hurt or some trauma that I didn't even realize was still there. It's like, it's not until I get triggered and I'm like, "Oh, so that still bothers me?" Like, I didn't know. And I think we've talked about this before as well. I don't know about on the live, but I know we've talked about this many times too, is that when you are healing something, it's often not done all at once.
Right.
It's often not done. So it's the same thing when you're changing something about yourself. It's not off. It's often not done all at once.
Right.
And even, in my case, when we were doing the mindfulness, and we talk about that when we did that mindfulness book, because it was during 2020 lockdowns most of the time, I was very, I was surrounded by people who I didn't have to practice mindfulness with as often as I might with other people. So so, so I thought I was doing it pretty good. I thought I was understanding it, and it wasn't until I would go into another environment,
Right.
that it would be like, "Oh," I think I used to have a little bit of the road rage, I guess we could talk about, or where you talk about that stuff. I had a little bit of it, but I learned very quickly, because I am a nervous passenger, and I am a nervous driver, that if I did those things, it would make me more nervous. So I tried very hard to understand where it came from. I remember telling my sister the other day that, when she was upset about somebody cutting her off, and I said, "But he had plenty of space." Like,
Yeah.
and we didn't get into a car accident. And, but the reason that you got mad is actually rooted in fear, because he startled you, he made you afraid for your personal safety. And then when you realized that there was no reason to be afraid because it didn't happen, your fear turned to anger because he made you afraid. His actions made you feel fear,
Yeah.
and that's why you
When
became.
in actual fact, he had no idea.
He had no idea. He had no idea. And it wasn't personal. It wasn't an attack against you. He didn't even think about you at all, because he was, or he or she, they were focused on their intent and their
Yeah.
goal and their whatever it is. And many, many, many times, people are cutting you off. People are driving through a stop sign. People are driving through a light. They're not turning their signal on. They're stopping in the middle of the road. Whatever the case may be, a bicycle who's riding right in the middle of the street, whatever those cases may be that happen, very often they aren't turning into something bigger, but you're afraid of that because you're not living in that present moment. You're afraid of the
Right.
potential that could have been.
Right.
The
And
potential.
that comes down to every situation that we're
Mhm.
in. It does the same thing. And the importance of practicing mindfulness in
Yes.
every moment of the day.
Mhm.
It's mindfulness is not a one time lesson.
Yeah.
It's an everyday thing that we have to learn, because in every situation, not just with car events and
Mhm.
not just with driving, but in every situation, we don't know the whole circumstance. In every situation, it's not about us.
It's yeah.
All of those things, it's practicing that to have the future be different than the past, the
Yeah.
present being where you want to be and being that person that you want to be.
I mean, John
Because
Shearer
we,
talks about that, it being a practice, meaning
yeah,
that you have to keep doing it.
yeah,
It's not.
it's, you don't get it and
Yeah.
get to the stage of, hey, I did this,
Yeah.
and I think it's the same thing. We're writing a book about spirituality right now and working
Mhm.
on that. Spirituality isn't something that you get
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
The only
True.
time you figure it out, the same as life. You don't figure out life
Until you die.
and get there. You don't, until you die. You're
Yeah.
done, because
Yeah.
for this whole process. We're learning new things and being different.
For our dash,
So
as I was reminded before, this is the dash, right? So this is then that I remember seeing that in the Year of Miracles, is how are you living your dash, right? And it was like that dash in between on your gravestone or your memorial when you die. They put the day you were born dash the day you die. That
yeah,
dash is your life. That's
yeah,
this whole stuff. Every moment that you're living here, that's your dash. So how are you living your dash? Like what are you doing? So
yeah. So that's important to remember about this topic of our past does not define us. The past being 10 years, the past being 5 minutes.
mhm, that's true. We talked about that too. It doesn't past is like doesn't have to be, you know,
Right.
what how long we've known each other since 2018. So I can't believe that it feels like it's been so much longer. Only because you feel so ingrained in my soul. And I think that that's important too. Like even in the not even 5 years since we've known each other. I know I've changed. I know you've changed. Like there's so much
Yeah.
that we've grown and we've changed, and like I wouldn't recognize. I do often joke sometimes when I talk to my friends that I've known since high school, or air cadets, and I talk about we talk about things like the new couch, or how when we wake up in the morning we're a little creaky, and all those, how we have to go to bed at a certain time, how we have to have Tums or something for our stomach. And I said, oh, if 16-year-old could hear us, they'd be telling us to be quiet old people. So so you definitely do change. You change what you like, the things you like, the things that you take priority. Everything changes. Everything changes all the time. And it can be from a big traumatic thing that changes. So I do know some people have giant health crises, and then have to change their life. And then sometimes it doesn't take that. It doesn't take that big thing. It's just they wake up in the morning and say, you know what, I don't want to be like this anymore. And or even in the middle of the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. So, to our listeners, if there's something that you want to change, just know that you have the ability to do that. As long as you're alive, you can change. You are just like that butterfly changing. You're just like that little cocoon that is
Mhm.
changing. You're forever evolving and changing.
Right.
So, don't feel like you're stuck somewhere you don't want to be, because you can always change.
Yes, you can. Absolutely. I think so. That's probably going to be it for today. I do want to say that there is an exciting thing that I have added to our Spotify podcast. So you can now do polls on the podcast. So every week I'm trying to do a poll that is something close to whatever the topic was that we were talking about. So if you want to hop over to Spotify, you can answer those questions. You can also just come and comment on our videos on Facebook, on our At Above and Beyond Facebook page, or YouTube, At Above and Beyond as well. We're At Above and Beyond everywhere. So go ahead and find us.
We want to hear from you.
We want to hear from you. So, and we also would love to have anybody who wants to be a guest, or if they want us to be a guest on their podcast, they can always email us at aboveandbeyond@gmail.com. We'll try to fit it in with Maggie's busy schedule to see when we can,
Well,
when
I
we can
had a
do.
busy schedule today till two of my appointments were canceled and gave me
Yes,
some free time.
the free time. Like I said, when you were talking about for Canada Day, and you said that what you were doing is sitting on the porch listening to the rain with Connor, your dog, our mascot, our unofficial mascot for At Above and Beyond. And I said that's the joys of being the owner of your own business, your own boss. And of course you were still doing a little bit of work, because that's also the joy of being your own boss. You sort of
Yeah.
never stop working.
There's never a time that you're
Off.
off completely, because it's always mulling around in your
Always.
brain, always going.
But
Yeah.
in the best possible way. And that's also something that is totally different for both of us as well. That doesn't define our past, and we're always changing, expanding, growing. And so yeah, go ahead and email us at ataboveandbeyond@gmail.com. Comment, send us messages, whatever you want to do. We love hearing from our people, our listeners. Bye for today.
Have a great day, everybody. Bye.